I want to dive into what he's really done because he's done the impossible. So what happens every time a coach gets hired? This can be in men's sports and women's sports. It can be in pro sports. It can be in college sports. It can be in basketball, football, baseball, soccer, hockey, tennis. Well, not tennis, but any team sport. The first thing they say is, we have to build a culture. We have to create a culture of winning. Every coach wants to do that. I'm not suggesting those coaches are lying to you. That's what those coaches are telling you they want to do. What Dan Campbell has actually done is accomplish that in a place where it appeared it would never happen. He had the absolute opposite. He took over a place that has the most famous culture of losing in the sport. They hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years. The 3 seasons before he arrived, they won a combined total of 14 games. That's an average of 4.5 wins per year. And he walks in there, and he did that. He didn't start winning immediately. You don't have to change the culture to start winning immediately. You have to change the culture. You have to create a culture to start winning consistently. And that's what he's done. I love Jason Kelce. I love everything about Jason Kelce. I thought he added immeasurably to the enjoyment of the experience of watching the Chiefs and the Bills on Sunday. I find him endlessly entertaining. I find him endlessly endearing. To me, he is everything that is good about football and sports. I want that on the table. Now, the reason this jumped into my head is because there was one shot, one picture that I saw of him shirtless, hanging out of that skybox, screaming to the heavens, in which you could see his wife in the back. And she was smiling, and people were, look at Kylie, she's so proud, whatever it is. You know better than I do his, because of the Philly thing, his whole family way better than I do.
We took a picture this year.
You and he took a picture this year. Right. But anyway, his wife looks like she's enjoying every bit as much as everyone else is his antics at this game. And all I could think to myself is, boy, is his marriage different from mine. I believe when it is all said and done, Tom Brady will no longer be the greatest quarterback in NFL history. I believe Patrick Mahomes will be. Patrick Mahomes, his team is now the first team in history to win at least 2 postseason games in 5 consecutive postseasons. He's made at least the championship level round in every season that he has been the starter. He has won 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, and is 2 wins away from another, and he's 28 years old. Patrick Mahomes is on his way to being the greatest player of all time, and he is already the best I've ever seen.
He's unbelievable. I mean, it's almost like the Chiefs are playing a trick on us, playing a trick on him, saying this year, well, let's see if you can do it without any receivers and with the most undisciplined tackles in the NFL. Go ahead. And, of course, they're back in the conference championship game. I think it's actually a pretty tough matchup for them next week, but if there's any quarterback that I'm going to give a chance to beat the number 1 defense in the league on the road, it's obviously Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if they lose the game, it is most certainly not going to be because of him.
Yeah, he was magnificent. The coaching in that game was magnificent. Matt Nagy, who is a guy that a lot of people, in Chicago, and thus a lot of people I know well, don't like. Some people were not meant to be head coaches, but boy, did they have a plan yesterday. Their offensive plan was extraordinary yesterday. Their defense did just enough. And that's a big day. If Mecole Hardman doesn't fumble that ball through the end zone, which I continue to think is the worst rule in sports, then they win that game going away. Maybe the most famous example of it I can think of, you'll know very well, was Donovan McNabb and T.O. Donovan McNabb and T.O. in Philadelphia. Terrell Owens came to Philly. He had the best season any Philadelphia wide receiver has ever had. He should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl, even though his team lost. He was magnificent. Donovan McNabb was his quarterback. They had a magnificent relationship. They were a magnificent tandem. They had great offensive coaching, and Andy Reid looked like they were going to become the next great quarterback-receiver combo in the NFL. And then what happened? Donovan McNabb got paid $1 trillion, as quarterbacks do. And when T.O.'s turn to get paid came up, McNabb refused to come out and say, yeah, they should give him all the money. he said something more like, you might remember it better than I do, something more like, that's not my area, right? Like that's, and he certainly didn't attack, denigrate, downplay, or anything Terrell Owens. What he just didn't come out and say, they should make T.O. the highest paid receiver in the NFL or whatever it was. And T.O. never got over it. The next thing you know, he's doing sit-ups in his driveway. The next thing you know, he's traded out of there. So, like, these things, when you start messing around with money, Micah Parsons' brother is saying, take $40 million or pack your bags for a guy who right now is scheduled to make $59 next year. Like, that does not end well.
You just hit the nail on the head. None of this would matter. None of this would be happening if it were not for the money. As I said, Dak Prescott entering a contract year. CeeDee Lamb entering a contract year. Micah Parsons has one more year on his rookie deal and then the fifth-year option, which they will obviously pick up. That is why this is becoming a thing. The NFL is a salary cap sport. The Cowboys have managed to get to this point without extending any of these guys and will probably have to, all of them, this offseason. And these guys and their agents and thus their families recognize the importance of this moment when it comes to their earning potential. They also know that Dak Prescott won't punch back. He's the one that won't. And that's why they'll say these things. The reason I think that there's a difference between now and before all these things were said, Greeny, is that Dak Prescott has never really been viewed, I think, publicly as a sympathetic figure, which I think he most definitely now will if he continues to absorb these slings and arrows.
It seems a fait accompli now that they're taking a quarterback at 1 and they're going to trade away Justin Fields. And I can't sit here and tell you that's the wrong thing to do. I can sit here and tell you that the way they're doing it is wrong. The fact that they maintained their head coach, fired everybody else, are going around scouring the streets for offensive coordinator candidates that no one has ever heard of. No one exciting, no one who makes you jump through the roof, no Lincoln Riley, none of that stuff.
They hired Shane Waldron.
And now they're going to draft Caleb Williams, and they're going to have a tough year because that's what teams do when they have the first pick in the draft and a rookie quarterback starting. And then they're going to fire Matt Eberflus, who in a year in which like the greatest coaches you could ever possibly imagine are available and potentially interested because you have the first pick, they needed to come out immediately and announce he's coming back. The Eagles still haven't announced that Nick Sirianni has a press conference scheduled for tomorrow. They still haven't announced it. He could get fired before. He could get fired at that.
Doug Peterson did the postseason news conference, and then they fired him
and
afterwards.
then got fired.
Yeah,
but the Bears, they wanted you to know that no matter what happened, no matter come hell or high water, I don't care what else, Matt Eberflus is our coach.
Well, I mean, for all the Super Bowls he's won.
We cannot continue the franchise without having Matt Eberflus be a part of it. All hail the Flus.